Hello everyone, and welcome to another project video of mine. Today's topic is going to be the spinal cord. For those who enjoyed Mr. Bones' cameo in the last video, he, however, will not be joining us today. However, both Heather and Leanne, my partners for this project, are ready to fill his place. So I hope you sit back and enjoy our presentation today.
Hi, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the spinal cord. It's the link between the body and the brain. It's the communication center for the body to send messages to the brain. It's how the body sends signals and how the brain sends signals back and forth. The spinal cord is nerves that run along the vertebrae in the back. It's about 40 to 50 centimeters long, about 1 to 2 centimeters in diameter. The spinal cord has 2 rows of nerve roots on either end. They join to form 31 pairs of spinal nerves. The spinal cord is composed of white and gray matter. It's divided into 4 regions: the cervical, the thoracic, the lumbar, and the scrotal. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. The first is the cervical. It's from the C1 vertebrae down to the C7, and that's at the top part of your neck. The thoracic, starting below that, is from T1 to T12. The lumbar is from L1 to L5, and the sacrum is from S1 to S5. There are 31 segments: 8 cervical, 12 thoracic, 5 lumbar, 5 sacral, and 1 coccygeal nerve, which is your coccyx nerve. And the spinal cord is sheathed just like the brain with 3 menings: the pia, the dura, and the arachnoid. I'm not sure how to pronounce that either. The spinal cord, the dura is the tougher outermost meaning layer. Then there is the arachnoid, and the pia lies right on the cord surface. The spinal cord carries information, sensory information from the body. It is the head of the central nervous system. It performs the initial processing of the information from the body to the brain.
Hey there, me again. So I'm just going to piggyback off of what Heather went over before I hand it off to Leanne. I'm just going to go over a little bit more in depth in the spinal cord itself. So the spinal cord is a part of the CNS, also known as the central nervous system. Now this is along with the brain. They are the principal integrator of sensory input and motor output. Thus the CNS evaluates incoming information and formulates appropriate responses to changes that may threaten our body's homeostatic balance. The spinal cord itself is protected by 2 protective coverings, the inner consisting of membranes known as the meninges, and the 3 layers that go along with it. As Heather said, it was the dura mater, which is the outer layer of the meninges, composed of connective tissue, blood vessels, and nerves; the arachnoid matter, which is a spider-like layer lacking blood vessels and nerves, also known as the middle layer; and the pia mater, the innermost layer providing the spinal cord with blood vessels and nerves. The other protective covering is the bony vertebral column, which protects the relatively shorter spinal cord. Now, the cord tends to vary between men and women, whereas it's 18 inches in men and 17 inches long in women. Now, beyond these 2 coverings, the spinal cord is also protected by a cushion of circulating serous fluid called the cerebrospinal fluid, or CSF, which is easier. The CSF provides a reservoir of circulating fluid, along with other fluid body tissues such as the blood. The CSF has homeostatic functions, which are monitored by the brain in the internal environment, such as the concentration of CO2. Also, the CSF forms from the separation of fluid from blood, and this separation takes place in the chordal plexus, a network of capillaries that project from the pia mater into the ventricles. The body makes up about 500 milliliters of CSF per day, but only 140 milliliters are circulating at any given time. Now, moving on to the spinal cord sections. Like the body itself, the spinal cord is separated into sections. Starting with the cervical, the 4 sections making up the cervical plexus consists of the following. Starting from the C1 to the C8 areas, the lesser occipital, the greater auricular, the cutaneous nerve of the neck, the supraclavicle nerves, and the branches to muscles make up the cervical. Now the brachial plexus, which is right below that covering C6 to C8, are the phrenic, the suprascapular or dorsoscapular, and the thoracic nerves medial and lateral. Following that, we move down to the thoracic area, starting with T1 all the way down to T12. These consist of the long thoracic, the thoracic cordorsal, the subscapular, the axillary, the musculocutaneous, the ulnar, the median, the radial, and finally the medial cutaneous. Now moving down to the lumbar and the sacral area, which both make up the lumbosacral plexus, we'll start with the iliohypogastric, the ilioinguinal, the genitofemoral, the lateral femoral cutaneous, the femoral itself, the obturator, the tibia, the common peroneal, the nerves to hamstring muscles, gluteal nerves, the posterior-femoral cutaneous. Finishing off is the podental, which together with a few fibers from the sacral section form the corrigial plexus, which are responsible for innervating the floor of the pelvic cavity.
Hi everyone! As most of you all know, my name is Leanne. I am going to cover diseases of the spinal cord. I worked with Sarah and Heather on this project, and yes, I'm sitting in my car because I just drove from school to work and I have a little bit of time, but I'll be at work till midnight tonight, so I'm just trying to get this all done. Anyway, so I'm going to cover some of the diseases of the spinal cord. Keep in mind that the diseases that I do cover are not all of the diseases. There are many more. The first one I'm going to talk about is meningitis. Meningitis is a very serious infection. It's the inflammation of the membranes surrounding the brain and spinal cord. The swelling triggers headaches, fevers, and a stiff neck. It's caused by a viral infection most of the time, but bacterial infections and fungal infections are also other causes. The second disease I'm going to talk about is spinal stenosis, which is the narrowing of the spaces within your spine, which puts pressure on the nerves, and it happens most often in the lower back and neck. Next one is multiple sclerosis, also known as MS. MS is a disabling disease of the central nervous system that disrupts the flow of information. It's the protective covering of the membrane of the nerve cells are being attacked. Myelopathy, I think that's how you say it, is injury to the spinal cord due to severe compression that may result from trauma, so like a car accident or something like that, severe trauma to the spine. Paralysis, obviously a complete or partial loss of muscle function. And paraplegia is the last one I'm going to talk about. Paraplegia is impairment of the motor sensory function of the lower extremities, which is also caused by a spinal cord injury. Those are just some of the diseases that are found in the spinal cord. There are a lot more that I could think of and put into context to tell you guys about, but those are the ones that I picked because those ones are ones that we hear about most often. So thank you for listening and have a good day.
Hi there. So to finish off the spinal cord itself, despite everything kind of being all over the place with the order of these, hope you've been able to kind of bear with us so far. I just want to finish off the spinal cord with a couple of other things. So the outline of the spinal cord itself. The spinal cord is located within the spinal cavity. Now, the spinal cavity isn't only occupied by the spinal cord. The rest of it is filled with the meninges, the CSF, as we mentioned earlier, a cushion of adipose tissue, and blood vessels. The spinal cord itself doesn't run the complete spinal cavity. It extends from the foramen magnum in the cranium to the lower border of the first lumbar vertebra. It's an oval-shaped cylinder that tapers slightly as it descends, and there are two bulges, one in the cervical region of the neck and the other in the lumbar region of the lower spine. There are also two deep grooves, the wide anterior median fissure and a posterior median sulcus that nearly together divide the cord into symmetrical halves. Now, there are also bundles of nerve fibers called nerve roots that protect each side of the spinal cord. In the image you'll see here, you'll also see the gray and the white matter. The gray matter extends the length of the cord. The cord looks like a flat letter H in a cross section. This is made up of anterior, lateral, and posterior gray columns, which when viewed as said cross section, the forming H columns are referred to as the anterior, posterior, and lateral gray horns. White matter, which surrounds the gray matter, are subdivided into three funiculi: anterior, posterior, and lateral columns. The funiculus consists of a large bundle of spinal nerves divided into smaller bundles known as spinal tracts. Now, at the beginning, we discussed that the spinal cord provides conduction routes to and from the brain. These also serve as the integrator or reflex center for all spinal reflexes. These include the ascending tracts, which conduct sensory impulses up the cord to the brain, and the descending tracts, which conduct motor impulses down the cord from the brain. Both tracts are composed of bundles of axons. The spinal cord also serves as the reflex center for all spinal reflexes, where incoming sensory impulses become outgoing motor impulses. The spinal cord also serves as a gateway to the receiving and sending of pain information to the brain cells.
Hey guys, here I am again. Anyway, we just want to say thank you for listening to us rant and rave about the spinal cord. We all know how exciting that is. Anyway, thank you and have a great day. We hope you learned something today. Take this into consideration. Maybe it'll help you study, maybe not, who knows? But thanks. Bye!